Thanks for joining us this evening and welcome to our New Year's Eve special. Coming to you live from Seoul, I'm Devin Whiting.
And I'm Shin Se-min. We're just less than half an hour away from ushering in the brand new year of 2019. And boy, what a year it has been.
It really has been a big year for the Korean Peninsula. If you think about how uncertain things looked a year ago, there's a lot to be thankful for, and we'll look at some of that later.
Personally, for me, the year 2018 is hard to let go. It has been very eventful with a lot of things happening one after another.
Absolutely. Well, tonight for our special coverage, our reporters have spread all out across the nation to show us the many ways people are celebrating the start of a new year.
Right, in New York, they have a ball drop at Times Square, and in France, events at the Eiffel Tower in Paris. And for many here in Korea, the celebration is at Bosingak in downtown Seoul, where they ring a huge bell that's hundreds of years old.
That's right, and tonight that's where our Park Hee-jun is on standby, right in the middle of a massive crowd, all wanting to see that bell ringing ceremony set to begin soon. Hee-jun, I know it's cold out there, but with so many people out there celebrating, it's got to be pretty exciting.
You're right, we're merely minutes away from entering 2019. And if you want to greet New Year's Day with full-blown excitement in your face, this is definitely the place to be at this hour, at this moment. Thousands of people have gathered here at the Bosingak Pavilion, even despite this freezing weather, just to see that bell ring behind me at midnight. So you really don't want to miss out on this iconic event tonight. And right now, actually, I'm joined by one of the people who are actually here to enjoy the ceremony as well. Say hi to Haley Rumpert from the United States. Hello, it's great to have you with us. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Haley Mumper. I'm from Kentucky, United States.
So how do you feel about saying farewell to 2018?
This year was so amazing. I think it's going to be sad for me. I've been to London. I've also been in South Korea. I went to Daegu University. I've studied there for 4 months. I came to Seoul for my vacation, and I saw BTS and SBS. And I loved them so much that I knew when everybody stood up who was BTS fans and who was EXO fans there.
Well, I can tell without seeing that everyone watching this is probably really jealous of you actually being able to see all those idols this year. But do you have any other plans set out for next year? Any New Year's resolution for 2019?
Yes, I want to work harder to graduate. I want to become an English teacher. I want to see the world and travel. I want to come back to South Korea and maybe teach here one day. And my family's missed me for 4 months, so I'm going to go to the Bahamas with them in like May.
So you definitely have a lot of goals set out for next year, and I really do hope the best of luck so that you can have everything done. Happy New Year to you, Haley.
Happy New Year's. Thank you.
So Bosingak isn't just a place for people to enjoy the concerts, the performances, and of course the bell ringing ceremony, but it's also a place where you can actually look back at the year with everything that happened, the good and the bad, and it's also a chance for you to really set new goals for the new year. Now, to give you a better idea of what's going to happen at midnight, at 11:59, there's going to be that bell ringing ceremony, and after that countdown, 16 people, including the Seoul mayor, are going to strike that bell. They're going to strike it 33 times, and that is going to mark the beginning of 2019. I'll be back for that in a bit, but for now, I'll hand things over to you.
Well, thanks, Hee-jun. We'll be looking forward to that bell ringing ceremony, and like Haley said, BTS, it was a big year for them. We'll talk more about that later as well.
Definitely.
But now we go down to Imjingak, and that's the place in South Korea closest to the north, and that's where our Kan Hyung-woo joins us on this New Year's Eve.
And welcoming in the new year, so close to the border between the Koreas who've seen such incredible developments in their relations, his year surely must feel different. Hyung-woo, so how close are you to the border now?
Hey guys, so the Imjingak resort is only about 7 kilometers south of the military demarcation line and some 15 kilometers away from the North Korean city of Kaesong. I'm standing in front of the Imjingak Pavilion's peace bell, where the lights are turned on to welcome 2019. But behind the main event here, it's really dark, so it's hard to see anything. But that's the northern side of the border, where North Koreans will also be celebrating the start of a new year. Although there's no way to say for sure what kind of celebrations are taking place in the north tonight, South Korean visitors here at the Imjingak Resort are hoping for further improvements in inter-Korean relations.
This year saw a lot of improvement in relations between the two Koreas, with a number of inter-Korean summits taking place.
I hope the road to peace will open up next year. They say North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will visit Seoul, so hopefully the road to peace does open.
Built in 1972 with the hope that someday unification would be possible, the Imjingak resort has over 400 photos and documents showing the reality of North Korea. As one of the most visited sites for families separated by the Korean War, the Mangbaedan altar is a place for them to perform the ancestral rites they would have traditionally done in their hometowns in the north. Every New Year's Day and Chuseok, the Korean Thanksgiving, they bow here facing home. After a series of inter-Korean summits this year, the Imjingak resort has seen a dramatic increase in visitors who come to see the northern side of the border with their own eyes. As we get closer to midnight, more and more people are showing up to hear the bell ring and see the fireworks light up the sky to welcome 2019. I'll be back in a bit with some more images of the excitement here at the Imjingak resort. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Ari Hyung-woo. At Imjingak, the closest civilians in the south can get to in the inter-Korean border. And now we take things all the way to the south of the Korean Peninsula. Let's see how the people down south right now are reflecting back on their past 12 months.
Our very own Hong Yu is at Ttangkkeut village, a place whose name in English means land's end. That's in Haenam-gun, Jeollanam-do province. And Yu joins us tonight via smartphone. How's New Year's Eve going down there for you, Yu?
Hi, Taemin and Devin. I'm currently at Ttangkkeut village, located at the southernmost part of the Korean Peninsula. Ttangkkeut village is a well-known place for its beautiful view of the sunset and the sunrise. And every year, hundreds of people gather here at this location to see that. And the crowds are gathering at this moment as we approach midnight. And by the time the first sunrise lights up the sky, hundreds of people will be here to witness the dawn of a new year. So it comes as no surprise that nearly all hotels and guest houses in the vicinities are fully booked tonight. Now, when the clock hits 12 a.m., there will be fireworks illuminating the dark sky. And that signals the beginning of Gangang-sule, an Asian Korean dance where people grab hands together and dance in a circle. But this year, they gave a modern twist to Gangang-sule, and they will dance the traditional dance to electronic dance music. Back to you, Taemin and Devin.
All right, thanks, Hong Yu, down in the southwesternmost part of Korea. And now we shift to the southeasternmost part, the port of Busan, which is the country's second most populous city.
And we go to our very own Choi Si-young coming on the air via smartphone again. Si-young, how are the people readying themselves to ring in the brand new year?
Well, guys, with some music. Behind me is a live performance in front of a large audience. Take a listen. Shortly after the concert at the 0 hour, a group of 24 bell ringers from all walks of life, students to workers, you name it, will strike the bell 33 times in a Buddhist tradition. People I've spoken to say that they came here to share the last moment with beloved ones. Some say they came all the way from Seoul just to feel a different vibe here in Busan. And from young to old, the place is now fully packed and ready to see the bell ringing. Now at the end, people are gonna sing the song of Busan, the city's anthem. Well, that's all I have right now, but I will keep you with the latest. Well, back to you guys.
All right, Choi Si-young with front row seats there in Busan at a concert for the new year. And now we're joined by two Arirang reporters in the studio to help us look back at the year in news. To your right, we have our parliamentary correspondent, Kim Min-ji, and to your left, our foreign affairs correspondent, Lee Ji-won. Both of whom were on the ground covering the stories that made headlines this year.
And Min-ji, I want to start with you as we were coming on the air tonight and recap the past 12 months of this year, the year 2018. You were also covering yet another big story at the National Assembly on the last day of the year, a busy New Year's Eve day there.
That's right. It was an extremely packed year and a very busy last day of the year as well. Today, in fact, one of the top stories was the grilling of senior officials of the Moon administration at the National Assembly for allegedly ordering the illegal surveillance of civilians.
And that was a surprising headline because that's the kind of thing that we saw under the previous Park Geun-hye administration, one of the sort of crimes that brought it down. How did this come about?
You're absolutely right. But here the scandal exploded when a special inspector from the prosecution claimed he illegally gathered information on civilians while working for the presidential office. Now, in Parliament, answering questions today were President Moon Jae-in's chief of staff and his senior secretary for civil affairs, who denied all the allegations. They said no surveillance whatsoever has taken place under the Moon administration, and a probe is currently underway on the matter.
New Year's Eve, but lawmakers questioning them all day. I think it's still going on right now.
But let's get right to it. We've collected some hot stories that took the headlines throughout the year. Of course, the headlines of the year also marking with a lot of these string of summits with big, high-profile key players.
Right, that's right. Let me pull this list of Arirang's top 10 domestic news of the year. Now, among them, we've had 3 inter-Korean summits this year alone. The K-pop boy band BTS claiming worldwide fame, the June local elections in South Korea, which saw a massive win for the ruling party and a devastating loss for the opposition, and the Me Too movement also hit Korea early this year. Also topping headlines were climate issues, from worsening fine dust levels to severe heat wave.
Well, as for the top global stories of the year, we obviously had the first ever summit between the leaders of North Korea and the U.S. And over in Europe, Brexit struggles continued to top headlines. The assassination of Saudi Arabian journalist Jamal Khashoggi also drew condemnation worldwide as a flagrant violation of human rights by the Saudi government. And last but not the least, Arirang's final pick was the major development in space exploration, where NASA's spacecraft revealed the first sound recording from Mars.
But let's go into some of the details of the headlines that we just looked through. Perhaps starting with one that may have started as the local and domestic news, the inter-Korean relations, which eventually evolved to an international news story, multiple summits and even more connections between the two Koreas.
That's right. Inter-Korean relations this year were nothing like we've seen in the past. If you call back to 2017, we had multiple missile tests and even a rocket launch from North Korea. But this year, it was more about fostering peace on the peninsula.
Yeah, really the starting point, you might say, was the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. And that's when the two Koreas competed together as one team, walked into the stadium together as one.
That's right. So after the two sides competed as one under the unification flag, it was the start of a thaw in relations, bringing the leaders of the two Koreas together for the first time in 11 years. Now, the first encounter of the two leaders at the demarcation line back in April was definitely one to watch. And I was also given the opportunity to live stream that at the press center. And they had another one also at the border village, that time on the northern side, in just a month. The backdrop of that meeting came out of concern that the planned summit between Pyongyang and Washington could be called off, and to the third inter-Korean summit taking place in September in Pyongyang. Now, the summits also produced 2 joint statements, the Panmunjom Declaration and the Pyongyang Declaration. Those were able to lay the groundwork for ridding the peninsula of military tensions and were a stepping stone to fostering economic cooperation between the two sides and eventually a nuclear-free peninsula.
Talk about a string of summits happening in 1 year, but we were this close of getting another inter-Korean summit this year before the year's end, because as the leaders had promised back in September, they were supposed to host North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Seoul for their 4th summit of the year.
That's right. So after weeks of will he or won't we, the visit never happened, but there's still hope that he might come soon. In a surprise letter to Moon yesterday, Kim expressed disappointment that he couldn't make his promised trip to Seoul by the year's end, but emphasized that he would like to meet again with President Moon frequently in the new year while working to build peace in the region.
Well, there's a lot to look forward to in the coming year. Some of it's already scheduled, like the joint recovery of war remains from the Korean War that the two Koreas are supposed to do in the early part of the year. There's another big player in North Korea diplomacy, though, and that's the U.S. And talks between those two seem to have sort of slowed down, lost some momentum here towards the end of the year.
That's right. I'm sure Ji-won would like to talk about that, seeing as she was there.
Yes, Minji. Well, remember last year when it was all fire and fury with nuclear buttons on desks and these harsh rhetorics exchanged between the leaders of North Korea and the U.S.? Well, this year, the two leaders decided to make new history, and despite the obstacles along the way, they became the first leaders of their states to meet. Now, Kim and Trump had their first historic meetup in Singapore on June 12th, and I luckily got the chance to cover the event at the site, as you can see on the footage there. And so the leaders shook hands on 4 points, including the establishment of diplomatic relations in exchange for the North's denuclearization. Now, there was progress before and after the summit. The regime blew up its nuclear test site at Punggye in a show of scrapping its nuclear power, and North Korea also returned 3 detained Korean Americans back to the U.S. and sent back the remains of the American war deads. But that patching things up period didn't last long, and the relations between the two sides seem to have cooled down a bit as the talks on the North's denuclearization waned over the past couple months. Now, come New Year, it looks as though we could expect some more development between the two. For one, since President Trump said he looks forward to holding his next summit with Kim sometime early next year. So that big moment between Kim and Trump is something that we can surely look forward to next year.
But Jiwon, shifting focus a little from the North Korea-related diplomacy, things got a little off shaky with Korea's neighbor, Japan. Quite a different story between the two sides, both Seoul and Tokyo, with the two countries, two closely aligned countries, making things much complicated and difficult, especially towards the latter part of the year.
Yes, well, Minji will cover that diplomatic news for us as well.
So yes, historical issues have long been difficult for the two, and their bilateral ties strained further this year. And one of the issues again is the comfort woman issue during World War II. Now, Seoul decided to dissolve a foundation funded by Tokyo to compensate the South Korean victims. We also saw a Seoul court rule that 2 Japanese companies compensate South Koreans who were forced to work without pay during Japan's colonial rule of Korea. Now, both decisions drew immediate condemnation from Japan, which called for responsible action on Seoul's part. So the two will have to face the difficult task of improving relations in the new year.
Right, and apart from that, Jiwon, the so-called G2 are going through a rough patch, to say the least.
Yes, you're right, Devin. The U.S. and China also have some work to do. Their trade war went into full swing early this year, with the U.S. imposing new tariffs on steel and aluminum, targeting China especially. The two sides have currently stopped adding new tariffs on each other, and they have been working to resolve the conflict as agreed by their leaders at the G20. Now, the U.S. negotiating delegates are to visit Beijing early next month to hammer out a deal on trade. So let's hope that this potentially disastrous war can come to an end without further collateral damage.
Right, so we've got through some of the hard news of the year, but we also had a dramatic and even inspirational story coming out of Southeast Asia.
Yes, Devin. While all these countries were fighting for their interest in these different matters, there was one story that brought the whole world together. And that was when one day in late June, a youth football team comprised of 12 boys aged between 11 and 16, and their 25-year-old coach got lost in Thailand. The search went on for days, but there was no sign of them.
Right, I remember international media covering that story from day to day on the each to every development taking place in that cave.
You're right, Semin. Everyone was wishing for the boys' safe return. And finally, after a 10-day search, the boys were found trapped deep inside a cave due to heavy monsoon rain. They were rescued after being stranded for 17 days. And though the boys and their coach were rescued safe and healthy, a diver died due to a lack of oxygen during the rescue operation. Now, this miraculous rescue and the sacrifices made by the rescuers really amazed and inspired the world. The boys received invitations from all around the world, like getting to watch their favorite team, Manchester United, at their home stadium.
And now, while we are on the soft news, we cannot miss this one. We've talked about it towards the first part of the show today. Yes, the mega hit cultural K-pop seeming to have reached yet another pinnacle. I mean, the BTS fave.
That's right. So the Korean boy band BTS showed that Hallyu has no boundaries. Just to tell you about some of the key achievements they made this year, BTS had 2 #1 albums on the Billboard 200. This was the first time a K-pop album topped the U.S. chart and the first time in 12 years that an album in a foreign language achieved such a feat.
Well, they even made the cover of Time. That's pretty impressive as well.
That's right. The magazine referred to them as the most popular boy band in the world and even compared their concerts to those of the Beatles. The group also became the first ever K-pop artist to address the UN. The band's leader delivered a speech at the UN General Assembly and encouraged people to love themselves as they are, as is the theme of the group's Love Yourself albums. Now, their increased popularity has also been a boon for the Korean economy, attracting foreign tourists to the country and boosting exports of Korean goods, which also shows the strong potential of Hallyu.
One thing that I regret about this year is not having to cover the idea and the story of BTS myself.
Not getting to cover. Well, there's always news to cover. Maybe that's something you can look forward to in the new year. We can always hope.
I am very looking forward to that.
Well, Minji and Jiwon, thank you very much for tonight, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year
Happy
to
New
you.
Year.
Now, in the meantime, huge crowds in downtown Seoul waiting for the great bell ringing, but there's another place in a significant location of its own. That's Imjingak, which is the closest civilians in the south can get to the inter-Korean border.
And yes, and as the people and the world await what's to come in the brand new year of 2019 in regards to North Korea abandoning its nuclear missions, we go back to our Kan Hyung-woo standing by, braving the cold for us. Hyung-woo, we are inching closer towards the new year. Does being so close to the north feel any different?
Well, not so much, but here at the Imjingak Resort, only 7 kilometers south of the military demarcation line separating the two Koreas, the air is full of hope for peace and harmony, with a series of inter-Korean summits taking place this year. According to Gyeonggi-do province, about 10,000 people have gathered here to celebrate and welcome the start of 2019, which is the most visitors this place has seen at the same time in a while. The Imjingak Resort was already one of the most famous tourist attractions related to the Korean War, not only for Koreans, but also for foreign visitors. But after the historic Panmunjom summit back in April, the number of visitors nearly tripled. The resort is a symbol of hope for the reunification of the two Koreas, and it could see even more visitors next year as Seoul and Pyongyang continue to work together to achieve lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula. I can see the joy and excitement on people's faces here as they wait for the countdown, which will begin in about 5 minutes. Many of them are wearing LED headbands and holding placards. On one side, they say New Gyeonggi, New Beginning. And on the other side, if you smile, happiness will come. When the clock hits midnight, the bell will be struck and the fireworks will light up the sky to celebrate the start of a new year. I'll make sure to bring you all of the spectacular scenes from here in a bit. So see you guys next year.
All right, thanks, Hyung-woo, and we'll see you in 2019.
And we are inching closer and closer to midnight, so let's go back to our Park Hee-jun standing by at the Bosingak Pavilion in downtown Seoul. Happy New Year, Hee-jun. Tell us more.
Happy New Year to you guys as well. We're literally just seconds away from midnight, which is going to help us greet 2019. And things have reached its peak here at the Bosingak Pavilion. And I'm kind of sorry for yelling at you guys, but there are just so many people here and the stage is getting ready for the actual bell ringing ceremony. Now you can probably feel things heating up as well as the people getting ready for the countdown. Now in a few moments time at 11:59. 16 people, including the Seoul mayor, will be ringing that bell behind me, and as you're seeing at the screen right now, and they'll strike the bell 33 times, which will mark the beginning of 2019, the beginning of the new year. And even after midnight, various events are lined up, including the mayor's New Year's address and some great performances. So stick around for a long night of fun and some partying. But one thing that does kind of bum me though is that in Korea, the tradition is that we age another year after midnight. It's really kind of scary how time flies by so fast. But may 2019 be the best year of our lives, and Happy New Year to you again, Semin and Devin. I'll see you next year.
We'll see you next year, Hee-jun. Thanks so much for that.
Happy New Year to you too.
That's funny. We get a year older here in Korean culture. It's a good thing that people should look up if you don't know that. But you know, you're 28, you think, in December, and suddenly you're 30.
Exactly. And I exactly remember what it was like being at the scene of the pavilion, the Bosingak Pavilion, because 2 years ago, I remember, was there exactly doing what Hee-jun is doing now with, besides those hundreds and thousands of people all gathered and jumbled up in that crossroads, everyone waiting for that bell ringing ceremony to begin. And we're just a little less than 5 minutes away from that bell ringing ceremony to begin. And boy, what an excitement.
Yeah, really, and to accommodate all those people there at the intersection there near Jonggak Station in downtown Seoul at the Bosingak Pavilion, they've shut off all the roads there so traffic can't get through. Everybody can have a space to stand. And by the way, if you're going out tonight in Seoul for some partying or if you're there at Bosingak, the subway will be running until 2 a.m. So you don't really have to worry about getting a ride home, though it might be a little bit crowded.
And the Seoul Metropolitan City says that some 100,000 people will have gathered at the Bosingak Pavilion, all waiting for that bell ringing ceremony, something that we see every year at this time around.
Yeah, always exciting to watch. You said you've been down there to report. I haven't yet, but there's the mayor of Seoul, that's Park Won-sun. He'll be sort of the master of ceremonies, I guess, tonight, and among one of the several people who will be ringing that gigantic bell back there, you can see in the belfry behind the stage. 33 times they're going to ring it.
Right, 33 times, and the reason that the number is because that reason dates all the way back to the Joseon dynasty, and as Bosingak belfry was used to ring that many times at 4 a.m., signaling the start of the day for the people in the city. So 33 times, that tradition keeps on.
Back when they used to open the city gates, which many of which are preserved as historical sites in Seoul. And the bell itself dates to the 15th century, and it's been in that spot right there since the early 17th century.
We are a little less than 3 minutes away from that ceremony, and the bell tolling ceremony will begin with 10-second countdown to midnight to officially mark the beginning of the new year.
So many things we covered here in Arirang this year, and it's hard to believe that the year's gone by so fast. This time last year, we were getting ready for the Winter Olympics.
Right.
And that's really what started it all off, as we discussed earlier.
But especially this year alone, it was as if we had at least an event taking place every month. I mean, we had that Pyeongchang Winter Olympics taking place in February, but up until that point, we were all busy gearing up for that festivity. And after that, we had a series of inter-Korean summits between the leaders of the two Koreas, and also the big player, the U.S., also jumped in on that and made things a little bit more crazy.
Well, we'll have one story in the next day or two that'll occupy a lot of our time, and that'll be when the leader of North Korea gives his New Year's speech.
Because that indicates his plans for the new year and how he plans on leading his own country.
So big announcements came out of that last year. We don't know what to expect quite in the new year, but we can see them there at Bosingak, getting ready to ring that big bell with the giant hammer there.
We know that people ringing that bell ceremony with the mayor of Seoul is also the Lee Guk-jong, the surgeon known for his work, as well as the speed skater Lee Sang-hwa, who also took part in that Pyeongchang Winter Olympics.
Yeah, and as a surgeon, he was the man who saved the life of the North Korean soldier who fled across the border.
Risking his own life, right. And we are a little less than a minute away from ushering in the new year, the brand new year of Golden Pig, and that is the Seoul City Mayor Park Won-sun, along with some of the civilians beside him. And
everybody's got their LEDs out. They're getting ready. Phones are getting ready. They're all recording out there, I'm sure. Just a matter of about 30 seconds now. This countdown should start pretty soon. Let's listen in, if we can, to the action. Should be about 20 seconds. 20 seconds to 2019, folks.
But I do this every year, but it does not feel that much different for myself. But with all the festivity taking place and the scene,
They're counting down.
울려 퍼지고 있습니다. (2019년에는) 여기 모이신 모든 분들 그리고 국민 모두가
there it is, ringing in the new year of Golden Pig, the 2019 it is.
That's right. That's an auspicious sign there of the 12 zodiac signs. The pig, and it's a golden pig.
You see those countless number of crowds all zooming in on that bell ringing ceremony, braving that cold. It's a little less than -5 degrees Celsius outside Seoul now, but the cold and freezing temperature doesn't seem to bother them much when it comes to ringing in the new year.
No, certainly not when you get 100,000 people in the same space. You could probably keep warm out there. The mayor ringing the bell 33 times, as is tradition, every year. And several ceremonies going around the country tonight, not just in Seoul, in several places, as we checked in with our reporters earlier. There's those at Imjingak, there's down in Busan, where they're having a big party, it looks like. And later on tomorrow, as the sun comes up, people can go to the east coast of Korea and see the sun come up.
Right, the first sun of the year, where a lot of the people wish for their, the wish for the year. Another making promises to themselves as to what they would do and when the new year arrives. And that's like a ceremony where a lot of the people do take place.
네, 제가 좀 설명을 드릴게요.
Have you been keeping count of how many bells they've rung?
I'm not sure. We must be close to 30.
자, 새벽에 치는 종을 하루라고 불렀고요. 새벽 4시경 33번을 타종해서 통금을 해제하고 도성의 문을 열어 하루를 시작했습니다. 이 파루는요.
Lots of New Year's traditions here in Korea, though. The bell ringing, just one of them. There's a traditional food that we eat on New Year's too. So
right, that's the rice cake soup.
Ttangkkeut.
Rice cake soup, signaling that you age another year.
As we discussed earlier.
Yes, if you have a bowl of that, that means you're a year older. So that comes along on the first day of the new year, and
especially, I think children probably like to get up and say, "Oh, now I'm not 6 anymore. I'm 7."
Quite a different move from a lot of the elders in the country, but that's the tradition that we go through and that we have.
That's right.
I mean, like I was saying, I was also at that scene 2 years ago when they were ringing that bell 33 times. And it's just amazing to see how people are just all so patiently waiting for that bell ringing ceremony to end. Because normally you would think, I mean, who would, stick around until the 33 bells are rung at the New Year's Eve? But they stick around and go through a lot of they view the ceremonies and festivities taking place at the scene and the Bosingak Pavilion.
That's 33 times they've rung it. So there we are. Welcome to 2019.
2019 it
Happy
is.
New Year,
Happy New
Semin.
Year. Happy New Year, Devin. I think you've missed some counts. They're still ringing.
They're still ringing.
They're still ringing.
That's right. There's 15 people who've got to ring it, right?
Right.
So.
They take routines, they take turns, so they may pause in between.
Yeah.
I mean, in moments' time, we're going to connect back to our reporters scattered across the country for their take in ringing in the New Year's and with all their own festivals taking place in different regions. And we also have some of the reports looking back at the year of 2018, although we have mentioned a few with our reporters in studio earlier.
Yeah, looking back and looking ahead, It's been a big year this year, but it could be another big one in the year to come.
Now I think we can see in the corner of the live
They're
footage
counting,
that
aren't
it's
they?
counting.
Yeah.
It's they've just rung it 23 times.
Yeah. It's you don't see a lot of the screaming, and it's not like Times Square in New York. Right, the vibe's a little different.
They don't have the
isn't it?
confettis here in Seoul,
Right.
but it's just the solemn ringing of that bell that goes on for a couple minutes now. There, the person in black coat facing his back towards the screen is Lee Guk-jung surgeon that we talked about, who treated a North Korean soldier who defected, risking his own life.
That was an amazing scene. It really was when we saw him run across the border last winter. And South Korean soldiers ran to help him and drag him across. And there's the man who treated his wounds because he was shot several times.
But the image that we have of that inter-Korean border is starkly different now since then, because now we even have our own reporter, Kan Hyung-woo, standing 7 kilometers away from that demilitarized zone, the DMZ line, signaling a start of another peace for the two Koreas.
Yeah, I mean, Arirang reporters interviewed North Korean athletes. We've got lots of footage from the Olympics earlier this year, getting quite close to the border there as well, near for the inter-Korean projects too.
So looking back this past 12 months, I think a lot has happened. I mean, I can't no longer say that it's past 12 months, but looking back at the year of 2018, I think a lot has happened, changing the mood of the inter-Korean relations 180% to a point where we're looking to build relationships together in a peaceful mode.
That's right. So many things to look forward to. As we mentioned earlier, the recovery of remains in the DMZ from the Korean War who have not been laid to rest in the 65 years since the war ended. We've got that. We've got transport projects between South and North underway this year. And so many things to look forward to, really. And probably the summit between President Trump and Chairman Kim.
Right.
That's the bell ringing is just about over.
That is the 33rd bell ringing, the last bell ringing ceremony for the New Year's of 2019.
Quite the ceremony in downtown Seoul. You were lucky enough to go a couple of years ago, but we're watching it here together tonight. Happy New Year to you, Semin.
Happy New Year to you too, Devin. It feels very different watching it in studio warmly under these,
warm studio
lights instead of having to brave the cold outside for hours. But still, it does mean a lot to see that bell ringing ceremony again.
Yeah, and what a year it's been for the country and for the world. But as each of us watched these events in the news individually, they shaped our own wishes for the new year.
And so now we listen to their voices as they let go of the past 12 months of 2018 and welcome the new year of 2019.
더 행복해지는 거예요.
다 행복했으면 좋겠습니다.
모두 바라시는 게 이루어지는 행복한 한 해가 되었으면 좋겠어요.
For 2019, I wish good health for everybody.
Happiness for me and everyone I love, and also peace in the world.
평화적인 분위기 속에서 한 민족이 함께 어울렸으면 좋겠어요.
집 앞이 어떻게 좋은 길이 열려서 보고 싶은 내 심정은 죽기 전에 이루었으면 참 좋겠어. 기대하는 거예요. 길만 있다면 난 정말 갈 거야.
그 양국의 이념은 다를지 모르지만 민족 간에 가족들 간에 서로 그냥 생사하기는 어떻고 건강은 어떠서 이렇게 좀 이상 가족들 얼굴만 보더라도 좀 이래 안심이 될 거 아니에요. 소원을 풀어질 거고. 그래서 그런 쪽으로 좀 내년에는 좀 더 한 발짝 나갔으면 하는 그런 바람입니다.
지금 여기 전망대에서 보고 있는 북한 땅이 너무 가까이 보여서 솔직히 뭐 여기가 남한이고 저기가 북한이고 이런 생각이 들지 않을 정도인데 내년에는 최대한 올해보다는 더 앞서서 뭔가 발전적인 그런 관계가 좀 됐으면 좋겠습니다. 2019 통일을 위하여!
For 2019 Happy New Year! 2019년 행복한 한 해 되세요.
And we take it back to the downtown Seoul, where the Bosingak Pavilion and the bell ringing ceremony took place moments ago, and that is where our Park Hee-jun is standing by for us.
It's now almost 12 minutes into 2019. Hee-jun, how is it out there?
Well, Happy New Year to you guys again. I guess this time it's real because it is officially 2019. Now, we just saw a clip on New Year's resolutions, New Year's hopes, and to be honest, let me tell you what I hope for next year. I like the families that we just saw, I hope we will have a more peaceful mood, a peaceful atmosphere on the Korean Peninsula, and maybe perhaps for us at Arirang, a higher payroll perhaps. Well, anyway, to give you a glimpse back onto the atmosphere here at the Bosingak Pavilion, people are still sticking around to look more at the ceremony, the performances going on right behind me, and those people who are actually trying to get home, they're having struggles because there are just too many people out here. But all in all, I think everyone's having a great time. I see a lot of families, a lot of couples and friends. They're having a blast to greet the New Year's, and I hope you guys will get the same after you guys get out of the studio. So back to you guys. I'll see you at the studio, at the office back.
Beautiful wishes, and glad to know that you're having fun and everybody else is having fun out there.
I know, good to see Hee-jun having high hopes and high dreams for the new year. Now let's take things to the southwesternmost corner of South Korea and how it's doing at this hour. Our Hong-yu joins us via smartphone from Ttangkkeut village in Haenam-gun, Jeollanam-do province.
Happy New Year, Yu. How's the countdown there?
Hi, Semin and Devin. Right now, I am at Ttangkkeut village, and right after the countdown, the fireworks exploded up in the sky, and the scene was absolutely beautiful. People were hugging and clapping to welcome 2019. And here, Ttangkkeut village is a well-known place for the beautiful view of sunrise and sunset, as hundreds of people gather here at this location to see that. People from all walks of life are slowly gathering here. The crowd will witness the first sunrise of the year at approximately 7:40 a.m. Korea time. Nearby hotels and guest houses are reportedly fully booked as people are staying overnight and as they are waiting to see the sunrise. Back to you and Happy New Year's, Haemin and Devin.
All right, Hong-yu down in Ttangkkeut village in the southwestern part of Korea. Thanks for that.
And major changes have taken place on the Korean Peninsula in the year of 2018 now, last year already, and a dialogue momentum settling in among the two Koreas and the U.S. And while the two Koreas have expanded their cooperation to a variety of fields, the hype for denuclearization talks between North Korea and the U.S. fizzled out in recent months.
That's right, it may have, but experts say 2019 will be another important year in which these countries will have to agree on the specifics of how to carry out the things they agreed on in 2018. Our Oh Jung-hee takes a look ahead.
2019 is a critical year of preparation for North Korea. That as the regime celebrates the 75th anniversary of the ruling Workers' Party's establishment in the year after, 2020, while wrapping up its 5-year economic development plan. But despite the regime's domestic efforts for economic growth, a set of strict sanctions by the UN and individual nations have hindered key industries in the regime. North Korea's GDP shrank 3.5% on year in 2017, according to South Korea's central bank. And pundits say the regime won't be able to avoid a minus growth next year as well.
North Korea's industrial production has been affected severely by sanctions on imports. Also, export-related industries like anthracite, iron ore, and fisheries may go through a recession. Meanwhile, foreign currency is being depleted in the regime, which will influence exchange rates and prices.
That's why sanctions relief is ever more crucial for Pyongyang. But that doesn't seem to be feasible, at least now, as nuclear negotiations between North Korea and the U.S. have been on a deadlock since the Singapore summit in June. In September, North Korea vowed to invite international experts over to witness the dismantlement of its Dongchangri missile engine test site and launch pad. The regime also said it can dismantle the Yongbyon nuclear test site, but demanded reciprocal measures from Washington. That's where negotiations stalled, as Washington was not willing to lift any sanctions unless the North took concrete steps towards its complete denuclearization.
North Korea and the U.S. both are willing to talk to each other, so I believe there will be meaningful results from their second summit next year. But their negotiations will gain speed once the U.S. is ready to offer something in return.
And South Korea's role as a mediator between the two carries on to the new year. Seoul is aiming at creating a virtuous cycle between North Korea-U.S. nuclear negotiations and inter-Korean cooperation. In 2018, the two Koreas kickstarted cooperation in a range of fields, from lowering military tension to economic and humanitarian issues. And experts say it's now time for Seoul to put more weight on denuclearization when communicating with the North. In regards to Kim Jong-un's visit to the South, experts say such event seems possible, reading from the letter Kim sent to President Moon Jae-in over the weekend. However,
I'm assuming that he will push forward with a cross-border visit after he meets with President Trump and some sanctions are lifted. Then, those will be able to lead agreements on inter-Korean economic projects as well.
2018 was a year of major political turnaround on the Korean Peninsula, with 3 inter-Korean summits and 1 Pyongyang-Washington summit. It's now time for the parties to meet and talk on the specifics regarding the fulfillment of North Korea's denuclearization and reassuring its security while setting peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
And time now to check in once again with our Kan Hyung-woo standing by at another New Year celebration at the Imjingak Pavilion.
Quite a change from downtown Seoul. He's just a few kilometers from North Korea. Hyung-woo, Happy New Year to you. Looks like there's a lot going on over there.
Happy New Year to you too. And yes, they started ringing the bell exactly at midnight, and everybody enjoyed the fireworks that marked the start of a new year. I'm standing in front of the Imjingak Peace Bell, and behind me it's really dark, so it's hard to see anything beyond the pavilion. But that's the northern side where North Koreans are probably celebrating too. Although there's no way to say for sure what kind of celebrations are taking place over there tonight, South Korean visitors here seem to be enjoying the moment. A lot of happy and hopeful faces here tonight. Their LED headbands are shining, and I'm hearing a lot of wishes for a better year in 2019. The Imjingak resort is a symbol of hope for reunification for the two Koreas. As both Seoul and Pyongyang continue to make progress towards better relations, the place could see even more visitors next year. Despite the freezing cold, about 10,000 people have come out to enjoy tonight's New Year's Eve festivities, and I'm more than happy to have been a part of it. Once again, Happy New Year to everyone. Back to you guys.
Happy New Year to you too, Hyung-woo.
Happy New Year to you too, Hyung-woo. I mean, we saw from that video footage that we were getting from that Imjingak but the other side of the border, which we weren't able to see, very stark black, pitch
totally
black.
Dark, yeah. Nobody knows exactly how New Year's Eve, New Year's Day is celebrated by the average North Korean. But we do know that New Year's Day is somewhat of a state occasion. Anyway, in terms of the economy here in South Korea, it was somewhat of a rough year.
Right. I mean, especially with South Korea being caught in the middle between the two big Group 2s, the U.S. and China. So economists have been steadily lowering the estimates for economic growth for the year of 2019. And our Ko Ryun-hee has the latest numbers.
Korea's economy in 2019 will grow more slowly than last year, mainly due to weak domestic demand and slower growth in exports. Domestic demand includes private consumption, public spending, and business investment. And among the three, the picture looks worse in terms of investment. According to a report last month from Hyundai Research Institute, construction investment is expected to fall in the new year by 2.9%. That's even worse than last year when investment shrank by an estimated 2.4%. The figure was dragged down by weaker investment in housing construction after the government passed stronger measures to curb soaring home prices. Facilities investment, on the other hand, is expected to record positive growth of 0.4%, up from last year's estimated negative growth. The report pointed out that growth is still slow due to shrinking investment in the semiconductor industry. Analysts say it's partly because of lower demand for semiconductors and falling prices. Private consumption isn't looking great this year either. Separate data from the LG Economic Research Institute released last September called for a rise in private consumption of 2.6% this year, down from last year's estimate of 3%. The institute says the sluggish job market has hurt households' purchasing power. Last but not least, exports are forecast to slow down in the new year as well. The Korea Development Institute forecasts in November that exports will grow in 2019 by 3.7%, which is slower than last year's estimate. Researchers say the ongoing trade war between the U.S. and China might hurt global trade and negatively affect Korea's export-dependent economy. To get things moving, an economic expert emphasized the importance of deregulation by the government.
The government should ease regulations, especially in industries related to the Fourth Industrial Revolution, so that companies can easily enter new promising fields. Private companies should actively invest in research and development to compete with other countries like China.
Ko Ryun-hee, Arirang News.
For at least a couple of decades, Korean pop music, K-pop of course, has been steadily winning fans all over the world. Arirang is actually one of the places where people get their K-pop content. It's hard to overstate, though, how big K-pop was this year internationally, with Korean artists blazing new trails overseas and reaching new highs on the Billboard charts.
And it's not just the catchy tunes. I mean, it's also the messages that Korean pop idols send through their songs. In fact, I'm slowly catching on this, but the hottest boy band BTS even made it to the UN General Assembly, giving a speech on the UN youth strategy of the UNICEF campaign. And our Won Jung-hwan zeroes in on their smashing success on the year of 2018 and what to expect this year.
While the Korean music industry has increasingly grown in recognition around the globe and has had isolated big successes in the past, it wasn't until this year that K-pop has truly been recognized as a major player in the global music industry. And at the center of that success was Korean boy band BTS. No longer restricted to niche audiences outside of Asia, as it had typically been thought to be in the past, the Korean wave led by BTS has come on in leaps and bounds. The 7-member K-pop act broke global records and achieved milestones that had never before been reached by Korean musicians. Their songs such as Fake Love and Idol placed in top 20 of the Billboard 100 singles chart and spread the Korean wave to the furthest corners of the globe. But it wasn't just the songs that grabbed people's attention. BTS were able to inspire young people by being the first ever K-pop artist to address the United Nations and by helping launch UNICEF's Generation Unlimited, an education and employment program for young people. While BTS's global success is likely to continue for some years to come, online video sharing platforms are expected to be the next driver of the Korean wave. Video sharing platforms such as YouTube have contributed to the Korean wave's surge in worldwide popularity since the mid-2000s. But with such unprecedented growth in popularity within Korea in 2018, it is likely that the next leading global Korean stars will emerge from such platforms. YouTube in Korea has quickly become one of the most popular sources of entertainment in the country, and Korean YouTubers have found remarkable global success in 2018, with many seeing their subscribers and views skyrocket. In November, Korean singer J-Fla, best known for her covers of pop songs, surpassed 10 million subscribers, making her the first local independent YouTuber to hit that number in Korea. So with the rise in popularity of YouTube in the country, the new K-wave could be led by emerging stars from such non-mainstream channels in 2019. 원정환, 아리랑 뉴스.
Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you for watching Arirang TV.
Thank you for watching Arirang TV.
Thanks for watching Arirang TV.
Thank you for watching Arirang TV and Happy New Year.
From Korea to the world.
Daniel Trip.
Gold medal in front of their whole family.
We would like to thank all of you for your viewership this year, and we wish you all the best for 2019.
It's been an unprecedented 2018 in news for the Korean Peninsula, but it doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon. So in 2019 as well, we'll continue to bring you the most comprehensive coverage and analysis of everything that's happening here in Korea.
It's the year of the golden pig, which means abundance and wealth. So we surely wish you a very happy, healthy, and hopefully wealthy 2019.
And Arirang News will keep our viewers up to date on news here in Korea and around the world in 2019. So make sure to stay tuned.
Hope you had a great 2018. As we begin a new year, how about instead of one lofty, nebulous New Year resolution, having some small, achievable mini goals and then celebrating after accomplishing them in 2019.
Familiar faces there, and a
Yes,
snapshot of what happened in the year of 2018. Boy, a lot happened.
It really did. It really did. An amazing year, and we do thank our viewers indeed for being with us all throughout it.
And shifting focus a little, one way you might look at trends for the years in terms of hashtags on social media. Think of the Me Too movement last year. That one made headway in countries around the world.
Sure, and Korea has its own social trends and trending hashtags. Things like ways to be frugal or how to take better care of the environment. Our Oh Soo-young takes a closer look at some of the key words we can expect to see here in Korea in 2019.
2019 is the year of the golden pig, a zodiac animal that's regarded as a symbol of abundance. But in the new year, it seems Koreans will seek life's simple joys, or Soakhaeng, as the term is coined on social media. Amid forecasts of a sluggish economy, both globally and at home, it seems most South Koreans aren't expecting hashtag prosperity. Analysts say popular terms like Soakhaeng and hashtag value for money will continue trending. Another buzzword is 5G technology. South Korea will become the first country in the world to commercialize the network, which is 20 times faster than 4G or LTE. Service providers plan to launch 5G in March.
The 5G network will proliferate the use of smart gadgets and software like voice assistant speakers, home appliances, and enable the advancement of the other IoT technologies.
2019 will also usher in more eco-friendly lifestyles. This comes after the government enforced stringent policies that ban the use of disposable cups inside coffee shops, as well as plastic bags from supermarkets. Since then, there's been a rising demand for reusable products such as flasks and canvas bags, and a growing interest in upcycling. Also, high levels of fine dust are likely to spur demand for pollution-tackling products. Another issue that will likely carry over to the new year is the Me Too movement. Except this time, it could be the men that point the finger.
According to psychologist Fritz Heider, people pursue a state of balance. As women drove the Me Too movement in 2018, it's likely there'll be backlash from men. They feel backed into a corner and are angry at the notion they're the sole offenders.
Finally, in 2019, the sense of self-identity is likely to emerge from the shadows of Korea's traditionally collectivist culture.
There will be a rise of what I call monosapiens, who don't want to be a part of a group. Any form of lifestyle or consumption will become a statement of their unique personalities. Businesses will provide more customized products and services than mass-produced mainstream ones.
The past decade has seen a growing number of people living alone, which has given rise to more individualistic social and consumer behavior. The trend is expected to intensify, especially with the rise of Generation Z, young people born after the millennials, as their purchasing power and social presence is expected to grow in 2019. Ushering, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of this New Year's Day special. It's time for some of that rice cake soup that we talked about, the tradition as it is. But now it's time for us to say goodbye.
And of course, all of us here at Arirang will be sure to give our best in the year of 2019, bringing you the latest on the Korean Peninsula and many more, the quality news you all deserve. From every single one of us here at Arirang, we all wish you a happy new year. So out with old and in with the new.
Thanks for watching. Bye for now.